Hello, hello, everybody. All right, so this is one of my favorite topics. If you are a business owner, right? So if you own a home care business or even any type of business, doesn't matter, but in particular, if you are a home care business owner, I love this topic because it's all about leverage, right? And I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that will help you just conceptually understand the power on how do you grow faster, right? How do you make things happen inside of your business life that will help you get there faster? Because that's really all leverage is. Leverage is essentially taking a finite amount of a resource, right, and then getting a greater output for the same amount of resource. And I'll explain what I mean in a moment. So if you're on here live, hello, what's up, Chuso? Mariani, hello. If you're on here live, anybody that's on here live, say hello. Let me know where you guys are calling in from. What's up, Jeff? Great talking to you, my friend. So what is one thing that we all have that is probably our most valuable resource? Comment in the chat box if you have any guesses on what that is. What is our most valuable resource? Bradenton, what's up, Jonathan? How are you, neighbor? I'm in Sarasota. So what are your guesses? What is the most valuable resource that we have as business owners? I want to hear, or even as human beings. What is one thing? All right, I'm going to give you guys another tip or another trick. Don't be afraid to say the wrong answer. What is one thing that we all have the same amount of that once we lose it, we can't actually get it back? Try that one. What's one thing we all have the same amount of? There we go, Jeff. Right, exactly. Right. So we all have this valuable resource. It's called time. What's up, Erica? And the truth of the matter is that it's one of those things that we will never get back. Right. I don't know what your beliefs are. My belief system is that as far as I know, I have one life inside of this body right here. One life inside of it. That's it. Once this body goes away, I go away. Now my spirit may carry on and blah, 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 all that stuff. But the truth of the matter is that as far as I know, inside of this body, I've got one life. And for me, I don't know why I was always like this, because as a kid, I'm like, I want to make the most of this lifetime. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't want to be just a normal guy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? If you're a normal person, normal guy, great. Whatever normal is to you. I don't even know who gets to define normal. But my point is that when I entered into this life, when I entered into adulthood, one of the reasons I started a business is because I was like, I can work for someone for the rest of my life, or I can create, right? I can create my own future. I can create my own life. And one thing that always amazes me, and if I'm being transparent, also sometimes creates a little bit of jealousy. It's not jealousy. It's like, holy cow, how did they do that? It's more of that. But there's that little element like, why? Why is it that they've done it so fast? Like they grew their business. Like I have a mentor who, what's up, Ashley? I have a mentor who legitimately grew $100 million a year business in 3 years. I'm like, what? Like it just, right? It took me like, I don't know, it was about 4 or 5 years to get to 3 million in my home care business. I have people that I know that I've coached that did it in like much, much quicker, right? And the more I started to learn, can I have his number to be mine? Yeah, I paid a lot of money for him to be my mentor. At the time it was $25,000. Now it's $50,000. And actually it might even be more than that now. But anyway, my point is that I'm like, okay, so how do they do this, right? How is it that they take their business and they can grow it so fast? And it often comes down to this one thing, which we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about different types of leverage, but it's leverage. At the core, it is leverage. How do we get more done with less? Because we all have the same amount of time, right? Can we at least agree on that? Comment if you agree, right? We all have the same amount of time. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, but he must be special, or he must have advantages, or he must have, he must have been given a lot of money, or, whatever the thought is, right? Sometimes you see people that are successful and we have thoughts, right? It's normal. We have these thoughts that pop into our head of like, how did they get there? So we're going to talk about different types of leverage. And I've read books on leverage. There's a book about financial leverage, which some of us, you don't have to agree with me on this. You don't. I'm not here to say, hey, you should think this way. Nope. You guys get to, what's up, Greg? You guys get to make your own decisions. But I remember thinking, I'm like, okay, money is something that we can recreate, right? I mean, how many of you have ever made more money in your life? Just comment in the chat box if you've ever done something and you made more money in your life. In your home care business, you got a 24/7 case, you probably made more money in that case, right? Your business grew. Or you got a couple bigger cases and your business grew. Or you sold your house and you made money. Well, I learned a long time ago, actually, my prior life, I was in the mortgage business, and I learned about financial leverage, okay? And essentially it's OPM, which stands for other people's money. And I was fortunate. The market at that time for mortgages, it was just insane. And there was a point in time where almost anyone and their mother could buy a house with no money down. In fact, I have a story where one of the houses that I purchased, because I also had my real estate license, I bought a house. All right, listen to this. This is leverage. I bought a house. I was a mortgage broker and I also had a real estate license. So I did the loan for myself. But I bought a house. I got a check for $6,000 for buying the house. Okay? That happened because I had my real estate license. I got the real estate commission. And I did my loan with no money down at the time. I don't know if you can still do these things today, but no money down. And I also financed the closing costs. So I literally came to the table with zero. And then I got a check, a real estate commission check for $6,000. And then the house appreciated because the market was booming. And I leveraged that equity for another $150,000. So think about that for a second. I got a house, I borrowed someone else's money, and I grew, the asset happened to grow. I'm not saying this is a strategy you guys should implement. You're going to be like, well, how does this apply to home care? We'll talk about that in a moment. It's just about understanding leverage. Like some people are afraid to borrow money from a bank. I'm not judging you. I don't, you guys do whatever feels right for you. But for me, I look at things as like, okay, I can borrow money and then invest it in myself or invest it in hiring a salesperson and hypothetically then grow that investment and pay back whatever the money is that I had to borrow if I had to borrow money. So I'm not afraid personally to borrow money because I believe in this power of leverage. It's like I can grow things faster by doing things that way. Does that make sense? Comment in the chat box if that makes any sense to you guys at all. Again, I'm not saying don't follow this advice and, hey, Greg said to go leverage everything and go borrow a bunch of money and make a bunch of investments and then maybe it doesn't work out for you. I'm not saying that. But I want you to understand the concept. Okay? So there's leverage and I look at ways like how can I create leverage? Can I borrow money for zero and then make an investment and grow in myself or something else? Or like oftentimes I invest in myself because then I can learn something which will bring me, I'll come back to that later. There is technology leverage. Comment in the chat box. How many of you guys have leveraged technology to save time, right? How many of you guys have a scheduling software? All right. Comment in the chat box like, oh yeah, I got a scheduling software. Do you have that because it saves you time or do you have that, right? Somebody, right? I don't know. How many of you guys used to do schedules through, manually, and you had to just, and some people still do. I've talked to people who are like, yeah, I'm still doing my schedule manually. No, right? Leverage. We want to leverage our time because we only have so much of it. So I don't mind paying a few $100s for a software because it's freeing up my time, and my time is valuable. My time is a commodity, and I will not get my time back. Does that make sense? Comment in the chat box. Yes, this makes sense. No, it doesn't. Greg, you're crazy. Greg, whatever. But does that make sense to you? Because we're looking at ways to create leverage. Okay. So another way to leverage or create leverage is through network and relationships. Okay. I'll give you an example of this. Many of you guys know that I've got mastermind groups. So inside of my mastermind groups, there are members that share. Craig said, I'm comfortable saying you're crazy, right? There are members inside of our mastermind group that have solved problems that I couldn't figure out on my own, right? So can you hold for 1 second? Get down. All right, so sorry, my dog's eating something. So there's things that someone will come to the table and say, hey, I tried this new thing, right? I was having trouble with recruiting and getting enough applications, and I tried this new thing, and it worked, right? Just comment in the chat box. How many of you guys at some point in time have had trouble with some version of recruiting in the last 2 years? And then maybe you implemented something and it got a little bit better. Maybe like Jeff, you sat in your little group with your franchise and learned one little thing and it got a little bit better, right? So how many of you guys have had some challenge in recruiting in the last couple of years, but then learned something and it made it a little bit better? Okay. So what I'm talking about is your network. Okay. Your network inside of our group, people will tap into each other like, hey, I need a policy on this. Boom. And it's not just about policies. It's about a whole bunch of other stuff. But I need, hey, who's done an acquisition before? And then they tap into the other members who have done it, and they share ideas and best practices with each other. And it saves them a whole heck of a lot of time and heartache. That is what's called network leverage, right? A lot of it is who you know. It's your circle. Your circle matters more than you think and more than you realize. And then there's network and relationships. So there's two parts to that. And relationships, you can say, is the same thing. It's your network, but this also applies in sales. One of the strategies that we talk about often is your dream team. Okay. In my home care business, one of the ways I got a lot of business and a lot of referrals is I had a little mini network. I had a little dream team of referral partners. These are people who were in the same industry in healthcare, maybe not home care, and we weren't competing with each other. And we referred back and forth to each other. And then we also set each other up with each other's process. I've now built a relationship with these people, and they're helping me tap into other resources that I would not have had available to me before, right? In fact, there's one instance I remember I was calling on a cancer center in my market, and I was trying to get in and trying to get in and trying to get in. And then one of my dream team partners, she was like, I get business from them all the time. Like, they love me. She's like, you're coming with me. We're going to go up and say hi to them. So she literally brought me up to the case managers and introduced me to all the case managers and said, hey, if you need private duty home care, this is your guy. Like, he's got a great company. Just like that, boom, a relationship started with the case management company of a cancer center that I've been trying to get into for, at that point, months, if not years. Okay. So there's power in your network and your relationships. All right. So the last piece, and I call this the last piece, it's important, right? Because it matters. And what do I mean by it matters? It's similar to, hey, I tapped into what was working inside of the mastermind group, right? So I talked to another member. He did something or she did something that I was trying to figure out how to do. They already did it. And I literally shortcut my success, right? this is what I do in my life, right? So when I built this Facebook group, you think I knew what I was doing? No, I had no clue what I was doing. I learned from someone on how to do this the right way, and I just followed their blueprint. And it worked, right? Because they had already done it. They'd already been successful. And that last little leverage piece, it's about knowledge and information, right? I love this. I've talked about this. I wrote a post on this the other day. Tony Robbins, this is what he does. You're like, oh, how did Tony Robbins get so far? Tony Robbins got so far because, one, he had this passion, this drive, but also because anytime he wants to learn something, he says, hey, I'm going to go to the person who knows how to do it well, and I'm going to learn from them and just kind of shortcut it. Does that make sense? Comment in the chat box if that makes sense. Because all of us on here, you guys are all smart. You guys can figure things out on your own eventually, right? For me, well, most cases, right? I shared this. I was on the phone with Jeff earlier because this was true. It's like and it's embarrassing to say this, but it's true. Like I used to be a sales manager at the mortgage company that I worked at. And I was like, okay, I had hired, 12, 15 loan officers. I trained them. They were all making money. And I was like, I can do this in my own business, right? That wasn't even my business. I was simply just the manager. But I came into home care, and the first 5 to 7 people were flops. I lost money. I was on the phone with Jeff, and I was like, $100,000. Jeff, it was probably closer to $200,000, $250,000 of money that I had invested, and it didn't work because I didn't do it the right way when it came to hiring a salesperson. And I've shared this before, but there's 3 ways to, increase your likelihood of success: right person, have a system, and the right accountability. But that's not the point. The point is that at that time, I did not have the solution, and it cost me a lot of money. And I could have figured it out eventually, probably is like a lot of trial and error. But at that time, I'm like, I knew I needed to scale. I knew I wanted to grow my business. I wasn't figuring it out yet. I could have eventually, I think, but I didn't. So I went and I learned from someone that's done this successfully. And just like that, I made a few tweaks. And the next 3 people that I hired were successful in my business. And they did not even have healthcare sales experience, right? Which is kind of cool. Like, oh, I always used to think I need someone from the industry and blah, blah, blah. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You find someone from the industry, that's great, right? As long as they have the right traits and the right profile. But we don't just look for someone just because they're from the industry. And I didn't know this before. I was like, I need someone from the industry. They all flopped. And then I hired people outside the industry and did the 3 things I told you about: right person, and there's an art and science to it, a system, and accountability. And I had success. In fact, I just looked today. I was like, I've been telling people that the last guy I hired is still with the company, and he is. I checked his Facebook profile, I think it was last night, and he's the regional manager now for my company that I sold a few years ago. And what's my point with all this? My point is that knowledge is a form of leverage, right? Knowledge and information. Anytime I want to learn something new, I'm like, I go find a book, I go find the person, I listen to what Tony Robbins says, whether you like him or not is irrelevant. He's brilliant. And I learn from him, and I'm like, okay, Tony does this because it shortcuts our success, right? Because we only have so much time. So I don't want, like, even this business, I don't want to be growing this thing and have it take 30 years to get to my goal. No. If I can do it in 3 years or 5 years, I want to do that. Now, I don't know. I'm not yet at the belief system that I can do what my mentor did, which is grow a $100 million company in 3 years. I just haven't gotten my mindset to that possibility yet, but I'm going to open up to it, especially now after this conversation, right? Especially now after this conversation. Now I'm like, okay, I'm going to open up to the possibility I can build a $100 million company in the next 3 years. That scares the crap out of me. But the point is that if I'm going to do that, I need to learn. And I am. I actually did tap into learning from this guy, but I wasn't ready. If I'm being honest, I learned from him 3 years ago. I wasn't ready. It wasn't a waste though. The $25,000 I invested in him it's one of the areas where I learned and I built this business. So I got a return on investment. It took me a tiny, tiny bit longer, but I got it. And I was starting from scratch. And that's what I do. I practice what I preach, guys. I'm not just saying this because it sounds good. I'm not saying this because, you guys need to learn from me. I don't care who you learn from, but whatever it is that you're trying to figure out, find it out from someone who's been there and done that. Okay. Shortcut your success because you can get the money back, right? If it's an investment of money, you can get the money back. I don't know how long it's going to take you. Is it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years? You get the money back as long as you implement and as long as you've vetted the person, like they know what they're actually doing, right? You know what I mean? So don't just blindly say, hey, I'm going to give someone money because Greg said I should learn information. No, doesn't work that way. You want to learn from someone who's actually been there and done it. Does that make sense? So, and it's interesting. It's like we talked about this, and I put this in my post. Did you know that, 70% of Florida Lotto winners, and there's a study that was done, 70% of Florida Lotto winners lost their winnings within 5 years. Think about that. So they had a resource, right? So many of you think, money is the greatest resource. It's a great resource to have, right? But without the knowledge on how to create that and how to turn that into more, it can go away, right? 70% of Florida Lotto winners lost all of their winnings within 5 years. Think about that for a second. Woo! But it makes sense. Just because they didn't have the knowledge to convert that into money and into an asset. And I know you guys aren't all doing this for money, but let's be honest. You start a business, it needs to be profitable to continue the mission and make you successful. So anyway, that's all I've got for today, guys. If any of you guys want to learn how we can help you with creating leverage through sales, recruiting, and implementing a management operating system inside your business so you have less chaos, you got more time to work on your business, and you guys can scale, just comment leverage below in the comments, and someone from my team will message you guys. So hope this helps. I hope you found this useful, like the different aspects of leverage, how you can use it inside of your business, inside of your life to scale and to grow faster. All right. To scale and to grow faster. So, okay, Ashley. Yeah, we have a way that we can help you with that. Okay. So, all right, guys, that's all I have for today. I hope that you found this useful. Let us know how we can support you and go put some of this into practice, and we'll chat soon. All right, guys. Bye-bye.